Today, we're jumping into a really powerful story from the book of Matthew. And it's a story of extremes, a moment of unbelievable divine glory on top of a mountain, followed almost immediately by a pretty humbling failure down in the valley. So what can this whiplash of a story teach us about what real faith actually looks like? Let's get into it.
You ever have one of those moments? Maybe you're at a conference, a concert, or some kind of retreat, and you feel totally on fire, like you can take on the world. But then you come back to your normal, everyday life, and it feels like all that power just fizzles out when you face your real problems. Well, that's the exact feeling at the heart of this story, that jarring disconnect between a spiritual high and a real-world low.
All right, so let's set the scene. Jesus takes his inner circle, Peter, James, and John, and they head up this high mountain. They're probably just thinking they're getting away from the crowds for a little quiet time, some prayer. They have absolutely no idea they're about to get a peek behind the curtain of the universe.
And then, all of a sudden, something incredible happens. Jesus is transformed. The actual Greek word they use here is metamorphoa, where we get metamorphosis. So this isn't just him glowing a little bit. It's a full-blown revelation of his true divine nature. His face is shining like the sun, and his clothes become whiter than anything humanly possible. Then, Moses and Elijah, who represent the entire Old Testament, just appear, and they start talking with him. The disciples are literally watching heaven break into their reality.
And if that wasn't mind-blowing enough, a bright cloud suddenly overshadows them, and a voice speaks from it. It's God the Father. I mean, this is the ultimate confirmation. It's God's own declaration of who Jesus is. For the disciples, this is the peak spiritual experience of all time. They're terrified for sure, but they just heard the most important endorsement in the history of the world.
But the story just slams on the brakes. It cuts immediately from this heavenly scene. As they all come down the mountain, they walk right back into the noise and the brokenness of the world below. The contrast is sharp, and it's totally intentional. That spiritual high is about to crash right into a very hard reality.
A man runs up to Jesus, and he's just desperate. His son is suffering terribly, tormented by a demon that throws him into violent seizures. And then the man delivers this gut punch. He tells Jesus he already brought his son to the other 9 disciples, the ones who stayed behind, and they were completely powerless. They failed. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe separated from their leader, they started trying to operate on their own authority instead of relying on the source of it.
So after Jesus comes in and effortlessly heals the boy, the disciples are left standing there just confused and probably pretty embarrassed. They had been given the authority to do this exact kind of thing before. So later, when they get Jesus in private, they have to ask.
And this right here is the whole point of the story. This is the question that tees up one of the most famous teachings on faith ever. They're not asking for a new technique or some magic words. They want to understand the root cause of their failure. Why did their power just disappear when they needed it most?
Jesus' answer is direct. No sugarcoating it. It wasn't because they lacked training. It wasn't a lack of authority. The problem, he says, was the quality of their trust, their faith. Being away from the source of their power, their confidence in God just wobbled.
But Jesus doesn't just leave them stewing in their failure. He immediately uses this moment to give them this incredible analogy, one that explains what true, effective faith really looks like. And spoiler alert, it's not what any of us might expect. To make his point, Jesus picks a mustard seed. Now, we have to get the context here. In that part of the world, at that time, the mustard seed was famously the smallest seed they knew. We're talking about something smaller than a freckle. It looks like absolutely nothing. And this is where his point becomes so brilliant. He isn't asking for a huge mountain-sized amount of faith. He's saying the size of your faith isn't the issue at all. It's the genuineness of it. Is it real? Is it placed in the right thing? God's power, and not your own. Because even a tiny, seemingly insignificant amount of real trust has world-altering potential. And here's the incredible promise. Genuine faith, even just a speck of it, is what connects us to the limitless power of God. The focus completely shifts from the quantity of our faith to the quality of our trust in an all-powerful God. Suddenly, moving a mountain becomes the perfect metaphor for overcoming any obstacle that looks completely immovable. Okay, so if genuine faith is the key, how do we get it? How do we cultivate it, especially when we're facing our own mountains? Well, Jesus gives a clue about the kind of disciplines that are required. First, a quick note just for clarity. You might see a verse 21 in some versions of the Bible that says, "This kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting." It's important to know this verse is found in some very old manuscripts, but it's missing from others. But the principle it teaches is totally consistent with everything else Jesus talks about.
The crucial thing to understand here is that prayer and fasting aren't magic formulas. They're spiritual disciplines. Think about it. Prayer is the act of consciously choosing to depend on God, and fasting is the act of denying our physical selves to heighten our spiritual focus. They're tools that strip away our self-reliance and force our trust back onto God, which is the very essence of that powerful mustard seed faith.
And that really brings the whole lesson full circle. That amazing mountaintop experience wasn't meant to be an escape. It was fuel. It was supposed to empower the disciples for the difficult, messy, and desperate work that was waiting for them down in the valley. The glory we witness is meant to be put to work, transforming the brokenness we encounter.
So as we finish up, here's a thought to take with you. Forget about trying to work up some massive amount of faith. Instead, what's that one impossible mountain in your job, your family, or even in your own heart that's just waiting for you to plant one tiny, genuine seed of trust in a power greater than your own?